Heroes of Haiti's sanitary catastrophe. The 1,500 Cuban doctors and nurses who alone have treated 40% of the cholera victims in every corner of the country. Thousands of them right here in Mimbale, in the worst-hit region.
This month we're seeing between 15 and 30 cases a day, but no fatalities, thanks in part to our education and prevention work in the community.
Not that the Cuban doctors are new here. They are the backbone of Mimbale's community hospital, built before the earthquake as part of an international cooperation agreement. Dr. Armando Noahil delivered this baby just a few hours ago.
I'm the only obstetrician in this area. It's our busiest field, so I'm on call 24 hours a day.
The Cuban medical teams aren't in this country just for the emergency. In the 12 years that they've been in Haiti, they have treated more than 17 million cases. Most of them, in fact, in places where there are no Haitian doctors or other foreign doctors, for that matter, available. In this downtown hospital, 75-year-old Imen Fortune, who is virtually blind, waits patiently for her turn to have her cataracts removed.
I used to sell food and work, but now I am helpless without my sight.
It's a quick and simple procedure, but one which 51,000 Haitians who've had their sight returned by Cuban optometrists could not have afforded in their wildest dreams. It's all part of Cuba's medical missions program, started by Fidel Castro in 1998, a Cuban foreign policy move aimed at spreading goodwill, not just from, but towards the communist country. Whatever the political motivation, Cuba's long-term commitment here has made all the difference to millions of Haitians, accustomed to seeing most international aid organizations come and go. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Mimbale, Haiti.
All right, let's take you back now to Egypt, where pro-democracy protesters have returned to Tahrir Square, Liberation Square, to mark 1 week since Hosni Mubarak stepped down as president. They're calling this the March of Victory to celebrate Mubarak's the end of Mubarak's rule and also remember the hundreds killed in the 18-day uprising. The protesters also want to keep the pressure on the higher military council, calling for the appointment of a new government and also for free and fair elections to be held in 6 months. Thanks for watching Al Jazeera. These are the stories making headlines. In Bahrain, hundreds have marched in support of the country's ruling monarchy. Bahrain state television showed people waving flags and holding up pictures of the king as they marched in the capital, Manama. Well, this came as thousands attended funerals of 4 people killed when the country's security forces attacked pro-democracy demonstrators on Thursday. Mourners at one funeral called for an end to the ruling monarchy. The country's top Shia cleric has described Thursday's deadly attack on protesters as a massacre. The military, meanwhile, remains on the streets of Manama this Friday. There's been a grenade attack on anti-government protesters in Yemen. We're hearing reports that at least 8 people have been injured in the city of Taiz. Now, security, meanwhile, has been tight in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, during Friday prayers. Thousands are expected to take to the streets for an 8th straight day after the prayers for a so-called Friday of Rage. In Libya, there are reports of more clashes between anti-government protesters and police. Demonstrators defied a crackdown and took to the streets in 5 cities on Thursday. Police in Afghanistan say 9 people are dead after a bomb blast in the eastern city of Khost. A further 30 people were injured in the attack carried out by a suicide bomber with a carload of explosives. Most of the victims are civilians. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. Voting is underway in Uganda for the country's presidential and parliamentary elections. The late arrival of election materials had delayed the vote. Officials say polling stations will stay open for longer to make up for time. Some 14 million Ugandans are registered to take part. President Yoweri Museveni is confident of a landslide win to extend his 25 years in office. The Japanese government is suspending its whale hunt in the Southern Ocean. It's blaming harassment by conservationists from the Sea Shepherd Society, who have pursued the Japanese fleet for months. Japan had wanted to kill 945 whales during the season, which usually lasts until March. A diver in Australia is presumed dead after being attacked by two great white sharks. Search and rescue teams in the South Australian town of Coffin Bay have all but given up hope to find Peter Carson. Thanks for watching.
As geeks take on dictators,
we will resist until our dying breath.
Bloggers turn dissidents,
Egyptians have set themselves on fire,
and social networks root for social justice. Governments are going cyber,
We will ensure that these networks are secure.
spying on their citizens, erecting firewalls like iron curtains, and closing down websites. We ask, is cyber-generated change virtual or real? This is Empire. Hello and welcome to Empire, coming to you from the prestigious School of Journalism at Columbia University. Information is power. And in the age of information, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter have become the new weapons of mass mobilization, transforming entire societies, from Iran, Tunisia, and Egypt, through the favelas in Rio and Bethlehem refugee camps. People can see the difference, imagine the alternative, and organize for a better future.
After more than 2 decades of rule by
Tunisia's
one man,
revolution has
Zayn
marked its place in
al-Abidine Ben
history.
Ali, Tunisia is now a country in chaos.
But it didn't happen overnight. And weeks before the world's mainstream media woke up to the story, tweets, photos, and videos began popping up on the internet from Tunisia, warning of trouble to come. A fruit and vegetable seller from Sidi Bouzid had set himself on fire on December 18th, and suddenly, reactions on the Twitterverse were exploding. Following the hashtag Sidi Bouzid, I called up hundreds of photos and videos showing students protesting, police abuses, and sporadic gunfire. As the messages went viral, protests broke out across the world showing solidarity with Tunisia.
Tunisia unrest makes waves in Lausanne.
Demo tomorrow outside the Tunisian embassy, London.
A flash mob is planned in Berlin on Saturday.
The beginning of a revolution was unfolding, and the mainstream media was just beginning to catch up.
There are no reporters in Tunisia to tell us what's really happening.
About this sooner. Mass media has totally failed.
Terrorism equals lots of media coverage. Democratic revolution equals little media coverage.
Tunisia's government began hacking into and deleting Facebook accounts. Protesters called for help from hacktivist groups.
An unprecedented crackdown on social media.
Censorship should get in touch with hacktivists and
We really need a local version of Anonymous in the Arab world.
And soon enough, another hashtag appeared across the networks. Anonymous.
The Tunisian government has decided it wants to restrict the freedoms of their own people. In doing so, the